Hey, James Vincent here, licensed to style and preach. Anyway, hey, I was thinking, I was praying in prayer today. I'm thinking about when I'm just waiting on the Lord, and all of a sudden the Lord put the Three Stooges in my memory, in my mind, and impressed it upon me. I thought the Stooges, Then I felt the Lord, say like, hey, what about humor? What about the humor of God? What about humor? I mean, do you think we're living in a time right now? We need some laughter, right? We need some humor. And we always look at God as being this dead serious all the time, no fun, straight dude that's just you can't, and when you approach God, it's always solemn and serious and you're approaching God, and that's true. But but also don't forget, God, Jesus said, you're now that you're saved, now that you're his, you're a friend. You're closer than a brother. So let's be real. Let's talk about, let's just be real. We don't got to be all that serious all the time. And God's funny. God has a sense of humor. you know, Case in point, I'm thinking about, off the top of my head, I'm thinking about Jonah. What about Jonah? Jonah gets swallowed by a whale, right? I mean that's kind of funny, right? He gets swallowed by a whale. So Jonah wanted to escape from God. He thought he could run from God. He didn't want to go preach to the Ninevites. He didn't want to do it. He didn't like them. He didn't want to have to say anything to them. And anyway, so in order for God to get his attention, God thought, well, you know what? This dude's running from me. He thinks he can run from me, right? I'm gonna have a whale swallow him. I mean, that's kind of funny, right? Anyway, a whale swallows him. Now it's not funny if you're Jonah, right? You're inside this belly of a whale. Imagine sitting in a belly, thinking about God, running from God, and all of a sudden thinking, I'm in a belly of a whale, alive. Where's he at? Hiding in the cavity behind his tooth? I mean, what? And they said he's in his stomach. He's in his stomach with all those gastric juices and blood flow, and I mean that'll get your attention, right? I mean, and it's kind of funny. I'm thinking, and God's sitting there going, well, I'll give him 3 days to uh, to marinate, and that's about 3 days that you get his attention, right? And then 3 days later, what? He spits him out of his mouth, flies through the air. I don't know where he lands, in the water, maybe landed right on the dock. Imagine what he looked like. And his skin was probably totally white from the gastric juices, and whatever clothes he had there was probably nothing left of them. I mean, think of this sight, right? I'm sitting on the dock, naked probably at this point, right? I mean, this is funny, yeah. And then once he said, what happens? Then he says, you know what? I think I might go to Nineveh and preach. Ding. Anyway, I just think that's funny. That's just one example. Again, off the top of my head, how about Sarah and Abraham? What? God tells Sarah in 99 she's going to have a baby, and Abraham, I mean, imagine this thought, right? I mean, this is funny, right? I mean, come on. He's thinking of, and what did you say? You can tell me, I'm gonna have a baby in 99, and I haven't been, and Abraham's like, I haven't had any stimulation in decades, right? And all of a sudden, you're gonna let me have pleasure with my wife at 99. I mean, this is funny. I haven't, in 90, in how many years, right? And all of a sudden now, I'm gonna have some fun at 100 years old, and plus I'm gonna get her pregnant. I mean, is this humorous? Is this kind of a humorous thing? But no, it's always so serious. God said that he would give her a baby. You must never doubt God. You will see what happens. I mean, sometimes we look at God as like, I think, the Father, I mean, as it's like the Wizard of Oz, like the great and powerful Oz. You will not approach me. I will zap you out. You will not, and in the Old Testament, yeah, there were some times. I mean, when they were approaching the Holy God, and then it was a different moment. It was a different millennium in a whole different situation. But now you're saved. And again, you're closer than you're a friend. You're closer than a brother. You're you have a great relationship with God, just like you have with a friend, right? You don't approach your friend every time you're a great good friend. You go, hello, friend. How are you today? I am glad to see you. I mean, are you getting my point? What I'm trying to say is you have to be real. Be real. Be yourself. I think God gets tired of all the solemnity or whatever the word you want to call it, of just people approaching him with this piosity, right? Just approach God. He already knows you're screwed up. Everybody's screwed up. He knows that. He knows your heart. He knows what you're doing. He knows what you're thinking. Then you're going to come to him and act like you're all holy and perfect, right? And he sees right through you. Anyway, let me think of one more example. How about, again, off the top of my head, I'm thinking of when Jesus does his first miracle and changes water into wine, right? At the wedding feast. So they run out of wine at the wedding feast, and it's not a good thing because the wine has to keep flowing. And anyway, Mary thinks, oh, the wine vats are empty. I mean, this beautiful wedding, you can't have any wine. We got to do something. So she approaches Jesus, her son, says to him, Jesus, now listen, I know you could do miracles. I know you're the Son of God, right? I want you to change this water into wine. You could do it. And Jesus looks at her and says, well, wait a minute. My time hasn't come yet. Now, again, we view that as, the first miracle, Jesus changing the water to wine. It was such a wonderful thing. Well, truthfully, Jesus didn't want to do it. But guess what happened? Do you know anything about Jewish mothers? I have an Italian mother, I had an Italian mother, and they could be very dominating and intimidating and forceful, right? I mean, could you see her? Could you see Jesus? Change into water and wine. Just do it. And Jesus going, oh, wait, just do it. I mean, this is funny. Could you see that scene? But again, we look at it, oh no, Jesus was holy and he had to obey his mother because and that's not what it was. It was a Jewish mother forcing him to do something he didn't want to do. He had to do it because he did it out of just being gracious, but he didn't want to do it. But it was a Jewish mother forcing him to do it. Jesus, I'm going to do it. Oh, no, I'll do it. Okay. All right, it's not my time, but I'm going to do it. I mean, that's kind of a funny scene, right? But we don't ever look at it that way, right? It's always solemn, serious. Again, there's a lot of humorous things in the Bible if you look between the lines, and you view Jesus as a real person, right? I think there's a series on TV now called I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's a whole series on Jesus and his humanity, portraying him to be, who he was when he roamed the earth. And again, without all the piosity, without all the, masks that people wear. We all come. Again, we're living in a generation of masks, right? And Jesus likes to take the mask off. He already knows what you look like. So my point is, when you approach God, approach Him in a real way. Lighten up, have some humor, see the funny side of things a little bit, right? This is how you get through life. You get, especially now, we're living in a difficult time. We need humor more than ever, and I believe Jesus wants us to see that side of Him, and wants us to laugh more, love more, have fun more. See the humor side in things. Loosen up, give somebody a hug, knuckle their head. You know what I mean? Laugh a little bit. You're not in charge of the world. You can't stop everything. You can't make everything be right. Here's what you could do. You could be lighthearted. You could still Of course, that doesn't mean you don't understand what's going on in the world. And there's a time for serious prayer and approaching God whenever He wants you to approach Him for whatever that might be. There's a time for that, but it's not all the time. Because if you really believe that you're not in control and God has the whole government on His shoulders, He's carrying the whole thing, then you could be a little bit lightened up. You don't have to carry the load. Your load's supposed to be easy and light, right? Jesus is the one supposed to be carrying the load. So why so serious all the time? And I know we're living in a difficult time and a serious time, but you still can't lose your sense of humor, and you still can't. You still can't be. You're not the one who's in charge. You're just not. So just be yourself. Have some fun. Loosen up. Yes, there's a time to be serious. There's a time for serious prayer. But when it's over, let's loosen up. Let's lighten up. God's in control. We're saved. We're sanctified. We're set apart. We're going to be out of here before you know it. If there's a rapture, we're going to be raptured, right? And in the 4th chapter of Revelation, after the 4th chapter of Revelation to the 22nd, the church is gone. At least that's what I read. And all the judgment happens on the rest of the people in the world. But guess what? We're not here. So what are you worried about? What are you so worried about? You're really not going to go through all this torture. It's a little torturous now, but it's not anything like it's going to be. And we're going to be spared from it. If you believe that, some people don't. Some people think you're going to go mid-trib, halfway through the trib. Some people think you're going to go all the way through the tribulation, whatever. That's not my point, really, about Revelation. But it is as far as you not worrying about everything. God has it He has it figured out. Sorry, I'm at the shop. Anyway, my point is, again, lighten up. Again, that's not just trying to make a point, that you could approach God being who you are, a little lighthearted, cut out all the masks, take the masks off, just be who you are. All right, James Vincent, that's it. Until we meet again, be at peace.